I wanted to react to a real estate option that I think is excellent. It can be affordable and profitable. And I love it for the following for the most part: family members that are currently renting. So if you have an existing property and you have, for example, children that are renting and spending a lot of rent, this is a way that you could bring them where they could save money. Perhaps you can make money where they're not paying a landlord, they're paying you at a reduced rate. I love this for older parents. If they have a home to sell, they could finance this entire real estate bill themselves. And then number three, for short term or long term rentals, whether you already have a house and you want to optimize the income you can make on that property, or if you're thinking about buying a house and you're thinking, how can I make the most of this property that I am buying? This can be an option for you. It is putting a tiny home on your existing property. I'm going to share with you a young lady that has done this in Atlanta and how you can do this and some things you need to think about if you're thinking about doing this for yourself, either now or in the future when you purchase your first home. Let's go ahead and watch.
My name is Precious Price. I am 26 years old and I live in Atlanta, Georgia. I built a tiny house in my backyard for about $35,000. I decided to build this tiny home because my house, my 3-bedroom, 2.5-bathroom house, felt too large for me. After looking in the backyard, realizing that, hey, if I put a tiny house back there, I'll be able to move in and then I can fully rent this house out. I purchased this property that the tiny house sits behind in October of 2019, and the purchase price for this home was $196,000.
Now, this is an older home, which can help you in terms of affordability. And what's good about purchasing an older home, they generally built them on larger lots than what they're building a similar home today. You know, your lots are much, much smaller because they're trying to optimize that space. So she spent $196,000 for that property and then $35,000 for the tiny home. And she talks about having, used some of her savings. She put some on credit cards to go ahead and finish that build. And what she does is she rents out the main residence and she lives in the tiny home. But you also can do it the other way where you live in the main residence and then you rent out the tiny home. Let's go ahead and talk about the cost that she, how did she spend that $35,000?
We were over budget $10,000 and spent total $35,000 on the tiny.
Okay, so she spent 35,836. She spent $10,000 on the structure. A lot of times you see Amazon selling these tiny homes, Home Depot, Lowe's. You see them outside of, just outside sometimes, at least in Atlanta, they'll have like a hall of these sheds. You take that shed and then you have to finish that shed. When you walk into those sheds, there's nothing in the inside, right? There's no flooring, there's no walls, there's no bathroom, but you have maybe the potential to put that in there. This tiny home, and we're going to do a tour of the home, is about 300 square feet. And so she had to pay for the labor to get those things installed. She spent almost close to $19,000, a little bit over $19,000 on the labor, and then $6,675 on the material. So buying the flooring, buying the drywall, buying the countertops, the cabinets, the bathroom. So let's go ahead and take a tour of this tiny home.
If I was to describe my tiny home for someone who has never been here, I would literally just describe it as a studio apartment. So immediately when you come in, you are now in the dining/living room. I would describe the tiny house as very light, airy, open. I made sure to add a ton of windows just to open the space up, and even more so, actually adding in mirrors as well to really make it feel larger. So the blues kind of gives like a cool feel, but also again just opens up the space so that you don't feel like you're just in a shed. You actually feel like you're in a house. I love this little breakfast nook area. It's usually where I'm grabbing drinks. Once you come around here and through, you are then in the kitchen. The kitchen is honestly my favorite part of the house because a lot of people are really surprised that there is, for the most part, a full-size fridge. We have an induction cooktop within the kitchen, in addition to a full-size sink. And then there's a ton of counter space. At least for me, it's a pretty good amount. Right across from the kitchen is where we have the bathroom that then slides closed and open for the barn door, which honestly creates a really cool space as well. So when we step into the bathroom, we're immediately met with these glass shower doors. It was imperative for me to put glass doors here just because it opens up the space. You're able to see through and it doesn't feel as small. There's a full shower, which is honestly perfect, and a little window as well, just because, again, every single space must have windows to just make it feel bigger. And then coming around, just adding more shelf space as well, just so that I can store even more. And of course, once you turn around from that bathroom, you then see the library ladder, which leads up to the loft.
So you have really everything that you need to live. It's not very large, like a studio apartment feel, but you have everything. You have the bathroom, you have the kitchen, you have, she has a couch there, which probably you can do like a pull out if you didn't want to, go upstairs to the loft area. So you have a lot of options to, fully live in this space at an affordable price. Again, only $35,000 to do this on your existing property. You could probably do this if you had to buy the land and develop the land, but the reason why it makes it easier to have an existing property is, number one, you already own the land. So you're just optimizing that land, and that land already has access to utilities because the home already has plumbing, electric, all of those things, the water that you need. And then your tiny home can, generate what they need off of that main structure. So it's much easier to add a structure like this to an existing property. And then number two is zoning. You have to make sure that what they call an ADU, an accessory dwelling unit, where somebody can live in this property on your existing property. Think of it almost as a guest house. Is that allowed on in your city? So you have to go to your zoning board. It can be a call or an email to see if they allow accessory dwelling units. Not all cities allow this. My city doesn't allow this. And then lastly, HOAs. If you are in a subdivision or you're thinking about buying in a subdivision that has an HOA, this is likely going to be excluded, something you cannot do in your HOA community. So you want to make sure before if this is something you want to do in the future, you definitely don't want to buy in an HOA community. If this is something you want to you you want to add to your existing structure, is probably not going to be allowed if you're in an HOA already. So just something to think about, but I think it's definitely a way to make your existing property more profitable. And it's also something to think about if you're a first-time home buyer, how you can optimize your property and make even more money. So if you have any questions, please put in the comments. But again, I think this is an excellent idea if you can do it.